Hi, Serge. Welcome to our online programming. This is part 4 as we ride out this quarantine together. Just want to remind you that we have not forgotten about you, that we are getting together and we are talking about plans for the day when we can all be together again and it's safe. We're also talking about different ways that we can connect while we're still in quarantine. So just remember that you are still a part of this ministry and this family. We're here for you and we haven't forgotten about you. But if you're new to Surge or new to our ministry, I'm going to get you caught up on what we've been talking about the last few weeks. In the month of March, we set off on this journey of talking about self-love and how it relates to our own mental health. And then last week, we wrapped up that unit after being reminded of the timeless call when life takes a turn to keep moving and how we're never alone when we are moving. This week, we're going to continue to take a break from what would normally be the start of a new curriculum to talk about something that's kind of a big deal in the life of a church, and that's Holy Week. So for those of you who don't know, Holy Week is when we observe the last days of Jesus' life, which leads to the crucifixion on the cross and then a celebration of his resurrection on Easter Sunday. And so Wesley is going to have some videos that are posted on our YouTube page of services that will really break down that story. And because I don't want this video to be like 1,000 hours long, I'm going to give you the shortened version and then encourage you to check out what Pastor Sarah and Pastor Justin have done for the whole church. But for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the whole story in Scripture. But what I will say is that these passages, they remind us of something about the story of Jesus' last days on earth. He's going on this journey where certain things, they have to happen in order for him to fulfill the will of God, which is to die on the cross. So these major points in the story happen, like he has the Last Supper with his disciples. He goes to the Garden of Gethsemane to pray. He testifies in front of Pontius Pilate. And then eventually he ends up at the foot of the cross, and he's ready for what God has in store for him. And these are things that he goes through. I mean, even though Jesus knew all along that they were going to happen, he was human, and I just imagine that those things that he went through, they changed him. As if to say that he was never the same after they happened. I mean, he couldn't be after all that he went through. And I want you to think about the great journeys that you've all been on in your own lives. And each one of us has undoubtedly been on a journey. And from it, you have a story which we all know by now matters. And I'm going to bring it up again. Remember that night when this all started for us, when we gathered in Wesley Hall and we shared with each other from these deeply vulnerable places about the worst day of our lives. You've all, every one of you, been on a journey. And although none of us are Jesus Christ, we are human just like he was. And those things that we've been through, they've changed us. So let's just rip off the Band-Aid and we'll get to the point here. After everything that Jesus went through that day, he got to a point where there was no turning back. Because of what he had been through, because of all that had happened, because the world looked so different after that, there was just absolutely no going back to the way that things were. And I know for us, I feel exactly the same way. Take a look at where we are in the world right now. Take a look at what our individual lives consist of at this moment. Nothing is the same. Nothing is the way that it was a month ago. And that's a reason to grieve and to throw a heavenly fit at the injustice and the unfairness of it all. I mean, you guys have had things that are canceled that you've been looking forward to for months, for years. Your entire lives are disrupted. They've just stopped. They're halted right where they're at. I know that that's hard, and it's a reason to grieve, and your feelings of grief and anger and frustration are very much justified. But at the end of the day, much like Jesus' journey to the foot of that cross, it's also a reason to rise. It's a reason to do something beautiful in the name of that grief that you're feeling. And it's a reason to take this journey that we've all been given and to let it lead us to victory. I know we talked a bit about this last week when we looked at the pilgrimage of the Israelites who were marching around the walls of Jericho, and how at the end of that tireless journey, marching in those circles, something incredible happened in Jesus' name. It was a victory of sorts for the people who fulfilled God's will. You know, there's a reason why this concept is coming up again this week. We've talked about it for like 3 weeks now. It's because this book, the Bible, right? It's a book that's filled with victories. And at the end of this journey that we're all on right now, it's my solemn prayer that you will have a list of your own victories, of stories that you'll be able to share, and tales of your time, isolated from others, but never far away from the love of God and his will for your life. Because there's no turning back. We've come to this point where too much has happened for us to ever be able to go back to the way things were. Because of this seemingly unexplainable journey that we've all been on, we are changed. And when we come out of it, God willing, there will be no choice but for us to love harder and to live fuller. We'll have no choice but to cling to the time that we get together with more conviction and more certainty than ever before. We won't be able to go back to who and what we used to be, because we just aren't those people anymore. And we don't live in that world anymore. We've been changed. And you know what? God didn't send his son to come and live among us and inhabit this earth and be crucified and resurrected so that we could live as unchanged people. All of that happened. This Holy Week and holy observance happened so that we could be made new. So that we might know that there's no turning back. Because you, Serge, you are all children of an incredible God. We are children of a time that will change the world. We are living in a time that people will never forget. And we are on a journey together that will remind us every day, moving forward, that there's no turning back. So I once had a professor in college who, when we would get a bad grade or we would tank an assignment, he would write this phrase at the top of our papers before he passed them back. And it said, "Don't worry, now you know," in big red ink. And I never used to know what that meant. In fact, I was really confused by it and sometimes annoyed. I just wanted him to tell me what I did wrong so I could fix it for the next time. But after all this time, I think I finally may know what he meant by that. I think he meant that the things that happen to us, the things that we go through, they help us to know what's important. They give us a sounding board to change, to rise, and to find new ways to live and to succeed and to speak our own truth. But most importantly, I think they remind us that there's no turning back. It's just like the promises and the comforts that are given to us in the story of Jesus' last journey on earth during Holy Week. We must remember that there's no turning back. And that there will always be victory in that promise. So, as we start to wrap up for tonight, Youth Cabinet has a message that they want to share with all of you. So, hear these words.
There's no turning back, Serge.
There's no turning back now, Serge.
Hey Serge, I miss you guys so much. I wanted to tell you that there is no turning back. And we are in this together. We can get through this. Alright. I love you all.
No turning back, Serge.
Serge, there's no turning back.
There's no turning back.
There's no turning back.
So remember those words. There's no turning back. And there's victory in that. I love you so much. I can't wait to see you soon. I'm thinking about you. Bye.